Listen to me. There comes a moment in your life when excuses can no longer live in the same space as your goals. You've been carrying them for years. You've been feeding them, protecting them, defending them. Every time something gets hard, you hold your excuse like a shield. But today, that shield becomes your prison. You've been telling yourself stories. I'm tired. I don't have the resources. I don't know where to start. My family wasn't supportive. My past was rough. And I'm telling you, none of that can stop you except you. People with less money, less education, less support are still winning because they killed their excuses and went to war with their goals. You can't expect greatness while holding on to excuses. Greatness has requirements. Greatness demands sacrifice. Greatness demands consistency when you don't feel like it. Greatness demands that you show up when everything inside you says, quit. Some of you are losing not because you don't have potential. You're losing because you're negotiating with your excuses. You're giving them room. You're letting them drive the car of your life. Hear me clearly, your excuses are lying to you. They're comfortable. They're familiar. They're easy. But they're killing your dreams. The moment you kill your excuses is the moment your real life begins. When you stop saying, I can't, you start discovering how you can. When you stop blaming everybody else, you start empowering yourself. When you stop hiding behind reasons, you start building results. You don't need perfect conditions. You need a perfect decision. A decision that says, from this moment on, I will outwork my doubts. I will outperform my fears. I will silence every lie in my head that keeps me average. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You rise to the level of your standards. So raise them. Hold yourself accountable. Wake up every day and grind like your life depends on it. Because it does. Stop waiting for somebody to save you. Stop waiting for tomorrow. Stop giving power to excuses that don't deserve to live another second. Today is the funeral. Today your excuses die. Today the strongest version of you is born. Now get up and go get what's yours. Excuses feel true, but they are emotional, not factual. And that's where most people get trapped for their entire lives. The mind has this powerful ability to take a feeling, dress it up, put a suit on it, and convince you it's a fact. It will take a moment of fear, insecurity, or doubt and present it like a logical reason why you can't move, why you shouldn't start, why it's not the right time. It convinces you that what you feel is what is real. But when you step back, when you actually break it down, you realize that the excuse wasn't built from logic, it was built from emotion. Emotion mixed with fear, mixed with past pain, mixed with the unknown. And the trap is that you believe it because you feel it so deeply. But feelings can lie. Feelings can shift. Feelings can betray you. Facts don't care how you feel, but excuses are born from the feelings you refuse to challenge. The problem is that nobody teaches you that emotional stories can disguise themselves as rational decisions. You start thinking, I'm not ready, but what you really feel is fear. You think, I don't have the resources, but what you really feel is insecurity about failing. You say, I'll start tomorrow, but what you really feel is discomfort, and your brain wants to avoid it. Excuses thrive in emotional darkness, in the spaces where you don't question them. They grow in silence. They expand in your mind because you never hold them up to the light. And when you don't test them, when you don't challenge them, they become your truth. Not because they're real, but because you never tried to prove them wrong. Look at your own life. Think about all the things you delayed, avoided, or walked away from. Was it because you genuinely could not do them? Or was it because the weight of your emotions felt too heavy in that moment? Be honest. Most of the time, it wasn't the situation that was impossible. It was the emotional story that made it look impossible. Humans are built to avoid pain, discomfort, embarrassment, and the unknown. And excuses are the mental tools we use to justify that avoidance. Your mind wants protection, not progress. It wants comfort, not challenge. So it manufactures reasons that feel protective, but in reality, they only protect your limitations. Think about it. If excuses were factual, no one in your situation would ever succeed. But people with less than you, people who came from harder backgrounds, people who were doubted, rejected, ignored, they still found a way. So your excuses can't be facts. Others have faced the same or worse circumstances and overcame them. That alone proves that excuses are emotional blocks, not real barriers. It's not that the world is stopping you. It's that your interpretations of the world are stopping you. Two people can have the same challenge. One sees a wall, the other sees a ladder. The difference isn't the challenge. The difference is the emotional reaction to it. Excuses feel true because they come from inside you. You trust your own voice more than anything else. But what if that voice has been shaped by fear? What if it's been shaped by past failures, by criticism you heard growing up, by people who doubted you? What if your inner voice is repeating lies that someone else planted in? If the voice inside you was built from the wounds outside you, then it cannot be trusted to guide your future. That voice is emotional residue, not reality. And until you challenge it, it will continue to run your life. Some people don't realize how deeply emotional excuses are. They are built from your desire to stay safe, to avoid risk, to avoid looking foolish or failing publicly. They come from the fear of not being good enough, the fear of disappointing people, the fear of trying and discovering that success doesn't come easily. Your excuses are tied to the survival part of your brain, the part that wants predictability. Anything that threatens stability, new goals, new habits, new risks, your brain fights against it and it disguises that resistance as logic. It sounds like wisdom, but it's really fear. It feels like caution, but it's really hesitation. Excuses are fear wearing a mask. Ask yourself this: if an excuse was truly factual, it would hold up under pressure. It would stand firm when tested. But excuses fall apart the moment you push against them. You say, I don't have time, yet somehow you find time for things that give you comfort. You say, I don't know where to start, but you solve harder problems in your life without instruction. You say, I'm not ready, but readiness comes through action, not waiting. When you break it down, it becomes obvious that excuses aren't rooted in reality. They're rooted in the emotions you haven't learned to master yet. It's not that the excuse is powerful. It's that your emotions are. They influence your decisions more than you realize. Every time you avoid doing something difficult, your mind rewards you with relief. Relief feels good, so your brain learns that excuses are useful. It becomes a habit, a cycle. You feel fear, right arrow, you make an excuse, right arrow. You avoid action, right arrow, you feel temporary relief. Right arrow, the excuse becomes stronger. Now your emotional brain thinks it's protecting you, but it's actually robbing your growth. You have to understand this clearly. Excuses don't feel emotional in the moment because the brain disguises them as rational thoughts. But they are rooted in emotion 100% of the time. Fear, doubt, overwhelmed shame, insecurity, fatigue, uncertainty. They're emotional reactions pretending to be logical conclusions. That's why they feel so convincing. Logic doesn't control you. Your emotional patterns do. And until you break those patterns, your excuses will run your life like invisible chains. Think about how many dreams died in people because of emotions disguised as excuses. How many people said it's not the right time and 20 years passed? How many people said I'm not good enough and never discovered how good they could have been? How many people said I'll start next month and then their whole life became a cycle of delays? Excuses sound small, but they can destroy entire destiny. Not because the excuse was strong, but because the emotion behind it was never confronted. To kill excuses, you don't fight the excuse itself. You fight the emotion underneath it. You deal with the fear, the doubt, the overwhelm, the insecurity. When the emotion weakens, the excuse collapses. Every major breakthrough in life begins with emotional mastery. When you learn to feel fear and move anyway, excuses die. When you learn to feel discomfort and still take action, excuses die. When you learn to feel uncertainty but trust yourself, excuses die. Your freedom is not in logic. It's an emotional discipline. Imagine how powerful you would be if your actions weren't controlled by feelings. Imagine waking up tired but still showing up. Imagine feeling fear but still stepping forward. Imagine doubting yourself but still deciding to try. That is the version of you that wins. Not the version with perfect conditions, not the version with no fear, but the version that doesn't let emotions dictate behavior. Excuses feel true because they're rooted in familiarity. The human mind is addicted to what is known, even if the known is destructive. If your whole life you've been telling yourself stories of limitation, your brain becomes comfortable with that identity. And any attempt to break that identity triggers emotional resistance. This is why people sabotage their own progress. They're emotionally attached to their excuses. Their excuses become part of who they believe they are. And breaking them feels like breaking themselves. That's why transformation is so hard. You're not just fighting habits, you're fighting emotional identities. But here's the good news. Once you separate the emotion from the thought, the excuse loses its power instantly. You say, I'm not ready. And instead of accepting it, you ask yourself, is this fear or fact? You say, I can't do it. And you ask, is this real or emotional avoidance? The moment you question it, the illusion breaks and the real truth comes out. You were capable the entire time you were just emotionally trapped. Your potential has never been the issue. Your excuses have been. And your excuses were never based on reality. They were based on momentary feelings that you allowed to become permanent beliefs. Once you understand that excuses are emotional reactions, not facts, you unlock a new level of freedom. You realize that you don't have to feel confident to take action. You don't have to feel ready to begin. You don't have to feel fearless to move forward. You simply have to stop treating emotions like truth. The irony is that once you take action despite the emotion, your emotions start to align with your actions. Confidence grows, clarity grows, strength grows, strength grows. The very emotions that once held you back begin to support you. But that only happens when you take the first step without waiting for emotional permission. You can't wait for feelings to guide you. Feelings are followers. They follow action. They follow discipline. They follow consistency, but they never lead. Excuses feel true, but they are emotional, not factual. And once you understand this, you can finally stop obeying the lies your feelings tell you. You can stop letting temporary emotions create permanent limitation. You can stop living in the shadow of fear and start living in the reality of possibility. Your entire life can change when you realize that nothing was truly holding you back, except the stories you told yourself and the emotions you never challenged. Kill the emotion and the excuse dies. Fight the feeling and the limitation breaks. Challenge the inner voice and your true voice emerges. You don't need more resources, more talent, or more time. You need emotional honesty. You need awareness of the lies your fear tells you. You need the courage to separate what you feel from what is true. When you master that, excuses stop feeling like truth. They become what they always were: shadows, illusions, emotional reactions. And once you see them clearly, you are no longer controlled by them. That's when your real life begins. That's when you become unstoppable. That's when excuses die, and the strongest, most disciplined, most capable version of you finally steps forward. Excuses grow when you do nothing, and action destroys them instantly, but most people don't realize how deep this truth goes. Excuses are like weeds in a garden. They don't need your permission to grow. They don't need your attention. They don't need your approval. All they need is your silence. All they need is your hesitation. All they need is a little bit of time where you choose not to act, and they start taking over your mind, your confidence, your belief in yourself, and eventually your entire life. The dangerous thing about excuses is that they are alive. They are not passive thoughts. They are active forces. The moment you delay, the moment you procrastinate, the moment you choose comfort over responsibility, excuses start expanding. They don't remain the same size. They get louder, heavier, more convincing. They begin as whispers, small doubts, tiny reasons. But as soon as you decide, I'll do it later, those whispers become echoes. Those echoes become voices, and those voices become command. Before you know it, the excuse isn't just a thought anymore. It becomes your reality. And that reality begins shaping your entire identity. What people fail to understand is that excuses feed on inactivity. In the absence of action, your mind starts creating stories to justify your inactivity. It starts telling you why you couldn't start today, why you didn't have the energy, why things weren't perfect, why the timing wasn't right. Your brain wants to avoid discomfort, so it produces reasons, very convincing reasons, to support the decision you already made, the decision to do nothing. This is how excuses grow. They grow when you don't challenge them with action. They grow when you give them space. Have you ever noticed how the longer you wait to do something, the harder it becomes? Not because the task changed, not because the world changed, but because your excuses grew stronger. A small task becomes a mountain. A simple step becomes something impossible. And by the time you convince yourself to start, the excuse has already wrapped itself around you like chains. This is how inaction slowly destroys potential, quietly, subtly, invisibly. But here's the power you often forget. Action kills excuses instantly. The moment you take even the smallest step, the excuse loses its grip. The voice that told you you can't starts shrinking. The belief that said it's too hard begins to break. Action is the enemy of excuses. They cannot coexist. When you're moving, excuses have no room. When you're progressing, excuses have no oxygen. They suffocate. They disappear. They die. People think they need motivation to take action, but the truth is the action creates motivation. You don't wait to feel like doing it. You do it, and the feeling follows. Every time you take action, you teach your mind a new story. I can. Every time you take action, you prove the excuse wrong. And with every step, the excuse gets smaller until eventually becomes irrelevant. That's why successful people are people with fewer excuses. They're people who don't give their excuses time to grow. Think about a moment in your life when you actually got up and did something you were avoiding. At first, it felt heavy, uncomfortable, maybe even intimidating. But the moment you started doing it, the fear faded, the doubt faded, the hesitation faded. Why? Because excuses only exist in a space before action. Once action begins, the excuse loses its purpose. It has nothing left to justify. It cannot survive in the presence of effort. This is why consistency is so important. Every day you act, you weaken the pattern of excuses. You build emotional momentum. You create habits that overpower hesitation. And eventually, action becomes easier than avoiding. The discipline becomes natural. The progress becomes addictive. And excuses become the exception, not the rule. But when you do nothing, the opposite happens. Every day you delay, you reinforce the excuse. You strengthen the belief that you can't. You deepen the habit of avoidance. Your mind becomes conditioned to stay still, stay safe, comfortable. And comfort, when repeated long enough, becomes a cage. You end up stuck not because you lack ability, but because your excuses grew bigger than your will to move. To move. Excuses thrive in a still environment. When you're idle, your thoughts run wild. You start imagining scenarios, fears, failures, outcomes that haven't even happened yet. You create mental barriers far bigger than the real challenges. Inaction gives your imagination free space, and the mind, when unchallenged, will always choose the path of least resistance. It will always choose what feels safe. And excuses feel safe. They feel familiar. They feel protective. But they're not protecting you. They're preventing you. Preventing your growth, your progress, your opportunity, your greatness. Excuses are thieves. They steal your time, your potential, your dreams, your future. And the worst part is they do it quietly, not through force, but through persuasion. They convince you that a later is harmless, but later becomes never, and never becomes regret. The people who win in life aren't the people with more resources, more support, or more talent. They are the people who refuse to let excuses grow. They are the ones who cut excuses off at the root the moment they show up. They don't give themselves time to overthink. They don't allow hesitation to linger. They move, they act, they push. Even when they're uncomfortable, even when they're afraid, even when they're tired, they act. Because they know that action is the cure for every excuse. When you understand action destroys excuses, you stop waiting for perfect condition. You stop waiting for clarity. You stop waiting for motivation. You realize that movement creates momentum, and momentum creates confidence. Your excuses only have power in your stillness. They have no power in your motion. Let me take you deeper. Every time you act, you are rewiring your brain. You are teaching it that you are the type of person who shows up, who follows through, who tries even when it's hard. This releases chemicals in your brain. Dopamine, adrenaline, confidence signals. These chemicals reinforce the belief that you can do hard things. And once your brain learns that excuses lose their influence, you become mentally stronger, emotionally tougher, and more resilient. That's why action is transformative. It doesn't just change your situation. Changes you. But excuses use the same process in reverse. Every time you avoid something, you reinforce fear. You reinforce doubt. You reinforce weakness. Your brain learns that you give in easily. That you don't push yourself, that you run from difficulty. And the more your brain learns this, the more powerful your excuses become. You're literally training yourself to be controlled by hesitation. You can't kill excuses by thinking differently. You kill them by behaving differently. You must attack them with action, attack them with movement, attack them with effort. You must refuse to give them the quiet space they need to grow. Action is loud. Action is disruptive. Action is force. And excuses cannot survive in that kind of environment. Sometimes people say, I'll act when I feel confident. But confidence doesn't come first. Confidence comes after action. It comes from evidence. It comes from proving to yourself that you can. You don't think your way into confidence. You build it through action. That's why even a small step mattered. Because a small step creates a small victory, and a small victory weakens a big excuse. Excuses grow in darkness. Keep your life in motion, and you keep the lights on. Action exposes excuses for what they really are, fears and stories with no real foundation. When you move, you discover that you are capable of far more than you believed. You discover that the task wasn't as big as you imagined. You discover that the fear wasn't as powerful as it felt. You discover that the only real barrier was your inaction. Action doesn't require perfection. You don't need the full plan to begin. You don't need to know the whole path to take the first step. You just need to move. Movement brings clarity. Movement reveals opportunities. Movement builds courage. The moment you start, everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because you change. Excuses grow when you do nothing. So stop feeding them. Stop letting them root themselves in your mind. Stop giving them the power to dictate your decisions. You have more strength than your excuses. You have more potential than your hesitation. But you will only discover that strength when you act. You will only access that potential when you move. The difference between who you are and who you want to be is action. The difference between the life you have and the life you want is action. The difference between success and regret is action. Your future is not shaped by what you think. It's shaped by what you do. Right now, at this very moment, you have a choice. You can either stay still and let your excuses grow, or you can move just one step and start killing them. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to act. Because the second you act, the battle shifts. The second you act, the excuses weaken. The second you act, your power returns. And once you realize that action is the key, you will never again allow excuses to control your life. You will understand that your destiny is not in the hands of your emotions, but in the hands of your actions. And when your actions become stronger than your excuses, you become unstoppable. Excuses protect your comfort zone, and goals require you to leave it. But most people never take the time to understand how deep this truth runs inside their lives. The comfort zone is not just a physical space. It's a mental environment, an emotional bubble, a psychological safe house. It's where you hide when life demands more of you. It's where you retreat when you don't want to feel pressure, challenge, vulnerability, or uncertainty. And excuses are the guards at the door. They make sure you never leave. They talk to you softly. They reassure you. They remind you of everything familiar. And they convince you that stepping out is dangerous. They make the prison feel like a home. You must understand that excuses are not random thoughts. They're strategically designed by your mind to keep you exactly where you are. Your brain is wired for survival, not success. It wants safety, not growth. It wants predictability, not greatness. Not greatness. So whenever you think about doing something new, something different, something challenging, your mind creates excuses to pull you back into the comfort zone. It tells you that you're not ready, that you don't have enough time, that other people have it easier, that tomorrow is better, that the risk is too big. And you believe it because comfort feels good. Familiarity feels safe. But safety and success rarely live in the same neighborhood. Your goals, dreams, and future live outside that comfort zone. They live on the other side of fear, effort, discipline, and discomfort. The comfort zone is a small room, and your dreams are too big to fit inside it. Every time you choose excuses, you choose to shrink your life to fit the room instead of expanding the room to fit your life. You choose smallness over growth. You choose fear over possibility. You choose stagnation over evolution. And the tragedy is that you don't even realize it. Because excuses make the comfort zone feel justified. When you decide to chase a goal, something inside you wakes up. Your potential, your hunger, your fire. But something else wakes up too, your excuses. Because goals require change and change threatens the comfort zone. So excuses rise up like an army. They come in waves. They come disguised as logic, reason, practicality, caution. They sound responsible. They sound smart. They even sound like they have your best interest in mind. But they are thieves. They steal your ambition, your drive, your energy, your momentum. And they do it quietly, gently, slowly. Not by force, but by persuasion. Think about every time you wanted to start something big, a business, a fitness journey, a new habit, a creative project, a lifestyle change. Remember how excited you were the first moment you thought about it. How powerful the vision felt. How motivated you were. And then almost immediately, the excuses started showing up. Oh, what if it doesn't work? What will people think? I don't have experience. I don't have enough money. I don't have the time. I'm not ready. And little by little, those excuses pulled you back into the comfort zone. The excitement faded. The motivation died. And the goal became something you told yourself you would try later. Later became next week. Next week became next month. And next month became never. Not because the dream changed, but because the comfort zone won the battle. The comfort zone is seductive. It gives you a false sense of security. It makes you believe you're safe when in reality, you're stuck. It makes you believe you're okay when in reality, you're shrinking. It gives you the illusion of rest. But the truth is it drains you because deep down, you know you're capable of more. And when you ignore that potential for too long, you begin to feel the weight of regret, frustration, and emptiness. People think discomfort is dangerous. People think fear is a sign they shouldn't move. But discomfort is the doorway to growth. Fear is the signal that you're stepping into your next level. Pressure is the birthplace of transformation. The comfort zone wants you to avoid all of this, but your goals demand that you walk straight into it. You cannot grow without leaving that bubble. You cannot evolve without pushing yourself. You cannot achieve anything meaningful while staying safe, hidden, protected, and unchained. Excuses work like emotional bodyguards. They keep you away from situations that challenge your identity. They protect your ego from failure. They protect your heart from vulnerability. They protect your mind from discomfort. But in protecting you, they also prevent you. They prevent you from learning new skills, meeting new opportunities, building new habits, discovering new parts of yourself. They prevent you from experiencing the fullness of your potential. Most people don't achieve greatness not because they lack talent, but because they are unwilling to feel uncomfortable. They want the reward, but they don't want the risk. They want the success, but they don't want the sacrifice. They want the dream, but they don't want the discomfort required to achieve it. They don't realize that discomfort is not the enemy. Comfort is. Comfort kills more dreams than failure ever could. You must understand this deeply. Every goal you have lies outside your comfort zone. That is the geography of growth. That is the map of success. When you set a goal, you are declaring that you want something different than what your comfort zone offers. So by definition, pursuing that goal requires leaving the comfort zone. You can't stay in the same place and expect a different life. You can't stay the same person and expect a different outcome. You can't cling to excuses and expect your world to expand. Growth and comfort cannot coexist. You cannot rise without stretching. You cannot transform without pressure. You cannot move forward without letting go of what keeps you still. And every time you choose an excuse, you choose to stay still. You choose to remain the same. You choose to live inside a boundary that your fear created. Excuses are the walls of that boundary. They're the fences that hold you in place. Some of those fences come from your past experiences. Some come from trauma. Some come from failure. Some come from people who doubted you. Some come from your own insecurities. But it doesn't matter where they come from. What matters is whether you're willing to climb over them. The moment you step out of the comfort zone, something powerful happens. Your mind starts expanding. Your confidence grows. Your creativity awakens. Your skills sharpen. Your resilience increases. You begin to trust yourself more. You learn that you're capable of handling challenges. You discover that discomfort isn't fatal. It's transformative. And once you get a taste of growth, you start craving it. You start realizing that the comfort zone was not comfort at all. It was stagnation. The people who win in life are not the people with easy paths. They are the people who train themselves to leave the comfort zone repeatedly. They get comfortable being uncomfortable. They stop negotiating with excuses. They understand that if you want big things, you must take big steps. If you want something you've never had, you must do something you've never done. If you want to rewrite your story, you must turn pages that scare you. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. The comfort zone will always call you back. Even when you start growing, it will whisper, come back where it's safe. Even when you start winning, it will say, don't go too far. Even when you start evolving, it will say, remember who you used to be. The comfort zone has a memory. It wants to pull you back into old patterns, old beliefs, old behaviors. Excuses are its tools. They will show up every time you level up. They will try to convince you that the new version of you is too risky. They will try to drag you back into average. But you must recognize them for what they are, not truth, not reality, but psychological traps. The only way to break free is to act despite the excuses, despite the fear, despite the discomfort. You must take the step before you feel ready. You must trust yourself before you see the full path. You must walk into uncertainty with courage. When you move forward, even with trembling hands or shaking legs, you weaken the comfort zone's control. Each action expands your world. Each risk expands your capacity. Each challenge expands your belief. The more you step out, the larger your comfort zone becomes. Eventually, what once terrified you becomes normal. What once intimidated you becomes easy. What once felt impossible becomes your new baseline. Growth is not a one-time event. It's a repeated decision. Every day you choose whether to stay small or expand, whether to remain the same or elevate, whether to listen to excuses or silence them. Excuses protect your comfort zone. But you were not born to live in a bubble. You were born to grow, evolve, expand, impact, and rise. Your comfort zone is not your home. It is your cage. And every dream you have is calling you to break out of it. When you finally understand that your excuses are not keeping you safe, they are keeping you stuck. You step into a new level of power. You stop settling. You stop shrinking. You stop hiding. You stop playing small. You stop living a life controlled by fear. You start choosing growth over comfort, purpose over ease, progress over excuses. And when you do that, your entire life begins to change, because the moment you leave your comfort zone is the moment you enter your destiny. When you truly decide to change your life, that decision doesn't happen on the outside first. It doesn't start with new habits, new routines, or new opportunity. It begins internally with a mental shift so deep that every part of your life eventually feels the ripple of it. Most people never experience that shift because they are waiting for the world to change before they change themselves. They want conditions to be perfect, timing to be ideal, support to be guaranteed. But life doesn't work like that. If you're serious about going to the next level, you must accept that change begins with you long before anyone else notices, celebrates, or understands what you're doing. And that's the part that scares people. The idea that the transformation must start quietly, privately, and often painfully before anything about their circumstances improves. Every time you try to grow, life will test you. Not because you're unworthy, but because growth requires resistance. You cannot pick up strength without pressure. You cannot build confidence without challenges. You cannot develop discipline without wrestling with your own excuses. And you cannot discover your potential without walking into places that once intimidated you. The moment you commit to becoming more, the universe starts checking how serious you are. Do you really want this? Are you willing to sacrifice for it? Can you be consistent even when nobody is clapping for you? Can you stay focused? Can you stay focused when distractions pile up? Can you trust the process when results are slow? These questions are not meant to break you. They are meant to shape you into someone capable of carrying the success you are asking for. The problem is that many people treat discomfort as a sign they should stop, when in reality, discomfort is the evidence that something powerful is happening. Think about it. Every meaningful transformation in nature requires discomfort. A seed must be buried in darkness before it grows. A muscle must be stretched and stressed before it strengthens. Gold must face extreme heat before it becomes pure. And a person must confront their limitations, fears, and weaknesses before rising to a new version of themselves. Discomfort is not a punishment, it is preparation. It is the universe whispering, keep going. Something better is coming if you don't quit. But quitting has become normal because people crave the result without embracing the process. They want the rewards of discipline without the discipline itself. They want confidence without doing the hard things that build confidence. They want opportunity without preparing for the responsibilities those opportunities require. They want success without endurance, respect without character, growth without struggle. And that's why cycles repeat. That's why so many dreams remain unrealized. Because you can wish for improvement without ever paying the price for it. And dreams that cost nothing return nothing. There comes a moment, though, when you realize the life you desire is only available on the other side of the life you're used to. You can't hold on to your excuses and reach for your greatness at the same time. You can't cling to comfort and expect transformation. You can't keep repeating the same patterns and hope for new outcomes. At some point, you must choose. And that choice is not loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's a quiet whisper inside that says, enough. I'm done living below my potential. That moment is powerful because it marks the beginning of a new chapter. Not because things suddenly become easy, but because you are finally willing to do what most people won't. Take responsibility for your life. Responsibility is the doorway to freedom. When you stop blaming circumstances, other people, your past, or your limitation, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting. You stop wishing. You stop expecting someone else to fix what only you have the authority to fix. The truth is that nobody is coming to rescue you. Nobody is coming to force you to wake up early, to practice discipline, to stay focused, to believe in yourself. To keep going is hard. That is your job. And the sooner you embrace that responsibility, the sooner your life begins to shift. Don't underestimate the power of small decisions. People believe transformation requires grand gesture, but often it is built moment by moment. Habit by habit, choice by choice. Success is not an explosion. It's a slow burn. Every day you choose discipline over comfort, you add a brick. Every day you refuse to quit, you add a brick. Every day you tackle the tasks you've been avoiding, you add a brick. And eventually those bricks form a foundation strong enough to support the life you're building. But most people never see the foundation because it is built in silence. It is built in the early mornings, the late nights, the mundane routines, the sacrifices nobody knows about. The temptation to quit usually shows up right before the breakthrough. It feels like you're giving everything and getting nothing in return. It feels like the sacrifice outweighs the progress. It feels like your efforts are invisible. But you must understand that the seed doesn't sprout the moment it's planted. Growth happens underground first. Progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. So don't let the silence fool you. Don't let the waiting weaken your belief. Don't let slow movement convince you that nothing is happening. What you call delay, life calls development. You are being strengthened, prepared, refined, and educated, not punished. When you feel like giving up, remember why you started. Remember the version of you that was tired of being tired. Remember the dreams that kept you awake at night. Remember the battles you've already survived. Remember the people who believe in you. Remember the younger version of yourself who prayed to be where you are now. And remember that someone out there needs you to succeed, not because they need your help, but because they need your example. You are not climbing just for yourself. You are climbing for everyone watching who doesn't yet believe it's possible. The truth is that greatness is not meant for a chosen few. It is available to anyone willing to put in the work, stay consistent, and refuse to surrender. But most people talk themselves out of greatness because they underestimate their capability and overestimate their obstacles. They see failure as a dead end instead of a detour. They see challenges as threats instead of opportunity. They see their potential through the lens of their past instead of their future. And that mindset becomes a prison. Break free from that prison by shifting your internal dialogue. Stop telling yourself you can't and start telling yourself you can. Stop focusing on what you don't have and start using what you do have. Stop replaying your mistakes and start preparing for your comeback. Stop comparing yourself to others and start competing with your old self. Your life will always rise or fall to the level of your beliefs. So if you want to elevate your results, elevate your mindset first. Consistency is the bridge between intention and achievement. Motivation may start the journey, but discipline finishes it. And discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up regardless of how you feel. There will be days when you're tired, discouraged, stressed, or uninspired. Show up anyway. There will be days when progress is slow, when results are hidden, when doubts whisper in your ear. Show up anyway. There will be days when the goal feels far and the pain feels close. Show up anyway, because success belongs to those who keep moving even when movement feels small. Eventually, your persistence becomes power. Your consistency becomes confidence. Your discipline becomes identity. And your hard work becomes success. You wake up one day and realize you are no longer the person you were. You have grown stronger, wiser, more resilient, more focused. And that transformation didn't come from luck, shortcuts, or miracles. It came from daily commitment and relentless effort. It came from refusing to quit, even when quitting felt easier. It came from choosing purpose over comfort again and again. And when the breakthrough finally comes, and you will understand why the struggle was necessary. You will see how every setback shaped you, every obstacle trained you, every rejection redirected you, every delay developed you. You will realize that the process didn't just prepare you for the blessing. It prepared you to sustain the blessing, because success without character collapses. But success built on discipline, consistency, and inner strength endures. So today, make a decision. Not a loud one, not a dramatic one, but a real one. Decide that you will no longer shrink yourself. Decide that you will no longer run from challenges. Decide that you will no longer negotiate with your potential. Decide that you will show up even when conditions aren't perfect. Decide that you will rise, even if you must rise slowly. Decide that you will keep going no matter how long it takes. Decide that you are worthy of the life you dream of, and then prove it through your actions, because at the end of the day, the future belongs to the persistent. The rewards belong to the discipline. The victory belongs to the relentless. And the next chapter of your life is waiting for the version of you who refuses to give up. There comes a point in life when you must confront the reality that nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to hand you the life you dream about. And nobody is responsible for your future except you. This realization can feel harsh at first, almost heavy, but it's also one of the most liberating truths you will ever embrace. Because once you understand that your life is in your hand, you finally stop waiting, and start creating. You stop depending on chances and start building strategies. You stop hoping things will change and start making things change. And that shift, even though it begins quietly inside, becomes the spark that sets your entire future on fire. People underestimate the power of taking ownership. They think responsibility means blaming themselves for everything that went wrong. But responsibility is not about guilt. It's about control. The moment you take responsibility is the exact moment you take the steering wheel of your life. You decide the direction, the speed, the purpose. You decide what you tolerate, what you chase, what you sacrifice, and what you refuse to accept any longer. Responsibility doesn't limit you. It frees you from excuses, from waiting, from wishing, from being stuck. But stepping into that responsibility requires courage. It requires honesty. You have to look in the mirror and admit that some of the places you are stuck in are not because life is unfair, but because you have been avoiding the actions and decisions that will move you forward. It's easier to blame the system, the circumstances, the people who doubted you, the moments that hurt you. But easier has never built greatness. And the truth is that the more you cling to excuses, the more you chain yourself to the life you say you want to escape from. Growth demands honesty. You must be willing to tell yourself the truth even when it hurts. If you lack discipline, admit it. If you've been procrastinating, admit it. If you've been settling, admit it. If you're capable of more but operating at half your potential, admit it. Not because you need to feel guilty, but because you need to stop lying to yourself. You cannot fix what you refuse to face. You cannot change what you pretend is fine. And you cannot progress while protecting the habits that are holding you back. Once you tell yourself the truth, the next step is choosing who you want to become. Too many people are defined by who they used to be, by their past failures, their past trauma, their old habits, their old environment. But identity is not a fixed label. It is a decision. You get to choose your identity every day based on your action, your standards, and your commitment. If you want to be someone disciplined, then show up consistently. If you want to be someone strong, then practice emotional endurance. If you want to be someone successful, then adopt the habits that success requires. Identity is built, not born. The problem is that people try to change their results without changing their identity. They want new achievements, but keep the same mindset, the same routines, the same excuses, the same emotional reaction. You can't upgrade your life if you refuse to upgrade your patterns. You can't create a new future with an outdated version of yourself. Every new level of life requires a new level of you, sharper, wiser, more disciplined, more intentional, and you can't step into that new version by accident. It takes conscious effort. The journey of transformation is not smooth. Some days will feel heavy. Some days will feel lonely. Some days will feel like you are giving more than you are receiving. But those are the exact days when character is built. Anyone can be motivated when things are going well. Anyone can be committed when results are visible. But true strength shows up in silence, in the days when you are tired but still working, frustrated but still pushing, discouraged but still believing. Those silent battles, the ones nobody sees, are where greatness is born. People often think emotional strength means never feeling overwhelmed, never doubting yourself, never breaking down. But emotional strength is not about avoiding struggle. It's about learning how to carry it without letting it crush your spirit. It's about knowing when to push and when to pause, when to fight and when to heal, when to persist and when to reassess. Emotional strength is the ability to stay committed even when your feelings try to pull you backward. Your emotions will fluctuate, but your purpose must remain stable. One of the biggest lies people tell themselves is that they need to feel ready before they start. They wait for confidence, for clarity, for motivation, but readiness is a myth. Confidence comes after repetition. Clarity comes after movement. Motivation comes after progress. If you wait to feel ready, life will pass you by. The greatest achievements in history were made by people who stepped forward, despite fear, despite uncertainty, despite discomfort. They didn't have all the answers. They simply had the courage to begin. Every meaningful journey begins before you feel prepared. The first step is always shaky. The first attempt is always imperfect. But you cannot master what you never began. And the moment you start, something incredible happens. Your brain begins to adapt. Your confidence grows. Your skills sharpen. Your belief evolves. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates transformation. Your job is to take the first step. The process will take care of the rest. Another critical part of growth is learning to manage your environment. You cannot rise while surrounded by people who expect you to stay the same. You cannot reach new heights while spending your time with individuals who drain your energy, undermine your goals, or refuse to grow. You must protect your space like your future depends on it. Because it does. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, not people who limit you. People who inspire you, not people who discourage you. People who want to grow, not people who are comfortable staying stuck. You must also become your own source of motivation. External sources can spark your fire, but internal commitment keeps it burning. You can't rely on applause, validation, or recognition to keep going. Some seasons of growth are quiet. Nobody will congratulate you for waking up early, for choosing discipline, for saying no to distractions, for doing the inner work. But those choices matter. They compound. They build the unseen foundation of your future. And the most profound growth comes when you realize that the world doesn't owe you anything. You don't deserve success just because you want it. You don't earn respect just because you ask for it. You don't build a legacy just because you dream of one. You get what you work for, what you sacrifice for, what you are consistent enough to maintain. The world rewards action, not intention. Commitment, not wish, discipline, not excuses. There will be moments when you question if your effort is worth it. When progress feels slow, when challenges pile up, when you feel overlooked, undervalued, unseen. But progress often disguises itself as struggle. The process tests you before it transforms you. And the people who succeed are not the ones who had the easiest path. They are the ones who kept going when others quit. Your breakthrough is never far. It's often just on the other side of your endurance. Think about every time you almost gave up and then something shifted. Think about the moments when you thought you had nothing left, and somehow you kept moving. Think about the times when life pushed you to your limits and you realized your limits were higher than you thought. You are stronger than your doubt. You are bigger than your fear. You are more capable than your past suggests. But you will never see your true strength if you keep stopping when things get hard. Every version of you that failed, struggled, cried, or fell apart played a role in shaping the person you are becoming. You are not weak because you struggle. You are stronger because you survive. The point is not to avoid failure. The point is to learn how to rise faster, wiser, and more focused. Resilience is not built in comfort. It is built in challenge. And every challenge you overcome becomes a building block and a foundation of your future. You must learn to give yourself grace while still holding yourself accountable. Grace means recognizing you are human. Accountability means refusing to settle. And together they create balance. Without grace, you burn out. Without accountability, you stagnate. But when combined, they create unstoppable growth. You forgive yourself for mistakes, but you don't repeat them. You acknowledge your struggles, but you don't let them define you. You rest when needed, but you never quit. The life you want requires a version of you that you have not yet met. You must grow into that person through discipline, through self-awareness, through consistency, through courage. You can't shortcut the journey, and you can't